you're gonna look great. But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the GymWits.
That's right, man. Tell 'em.
Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits. So I have a request for GymWits listeners. I know we have a bunch in Ireland, and so my wife and I are doing separate kind of mini vacations for the spring. So I'm going to Dublin. I'm going to the Skellig area because I'm a geek, and I'm going to go see where some of the most recent Star Wars both movies were filmed.
Nice.
And I'm going to Belfast to see some Game of Thrones stuff, and then I'm going to Dubrovnik, where both Game of Thrones and Star Wars had stuff from. I will have a full day in Dublin where I have nothing to do. So if anyone has any recommendations on what I need to do in Dublin, especially if it's food, because obviously I know some of the major sites, but if there's like the place I have to eat in Dublin, or just sites or interesting things or nooks and crannies that like I should go to. I know we have a bunch of listeners in Ireland, so help me out and send me some suggestions.
You want to hang out with Ryan?
No, hanging out with Ryan.
He probably wants to hang out with you guys.
As much as I love to meet people, I'm kind. It's weird. Like, I don't know if we talked about it. We probably did talk about it on the podcast, so I apologize. But like, it's like I'm so social day to day, and like I'm an introvert, and I like being day to day, having to interact with people. I like my time to myself. I'm not the type of person who likes to go meet the locals. I just like to see stuff
I don't know.
and eat.
I think these are our fans, though. I think you need to listen. Don't listen to Ryan. He'll meet you for a drink.
Well, we know meet and greets, sir. As much as I enjoy our listeners. I just want suggestions on places to eat and sites or nooks and crannies. Like, especially like two things: food and pictures. If there's a place that's like really picturesque that I could get to that day. Obviously, there are lots of stuff in Ireland, but yeah, we'll have one free day in Dublin where I'd love to find some stuff to do. So if you're a listener, help us out, or help me out, I should say. Anyways, what's going on with you? Have you been working out?
Yeah, pretty well. How's it going?
Yeah, you're not working out at all.
No, I am. I would say if I wasn't, I went through a busy spell where I did it for a week, but I got back into it. I'm pretty well. I would really love to go back and train. I've been saying it now for months. It's just difficult for me to do it. My schedule is crazy, and it just doesn't make sense. But maybe over the summer, when I have that time off, I can do it.
Yeah, I didn't want to segue so quick into our main topic, but you sound like somebody who needs to answer some of these questions for himself.
Well, that's what made me think about it, because Ryan wanted to do a questionnaire about.
Yeah, Justin put the kibosh on that.
Well, he wanted to do it about a sort of a self-assessment questionnaire, questions that you're going to ask yourself. And he wanted to do it in regards to a new workout, something that you were starting.
Nope, never said that.
That's what it was.
Not at all.
I mean, that's basically what it was.
No, it wasn't.
Why are you starting this?
Nope.
One of the questions was, why are you starting a new workout?
No, that wasn't it. He's not correct. So I'll give some context.
Okay.
So my idea was, typically whenever not often it is a new client, but when I meet with somebody about personal training, I have a kind of a questionnaire that I go through with them, a list of questions that you will never know now because of Justin. Although we've tackled most of those questions individually, so it's not really that big of a deal. But so I have a list of questions I ask every new client. Now, not every new client is beginning a workout program. Many are working out; they just aren't getting the results they want, or they're inconsistent, or whatever the case is. So while some of the questions might be geared towards somebody who isn't in a regular set program, there are plenty of questions that I ask that then should extract data and information and for me to work with, and also for the client to work with and think about. So Justin thought it was a great idea until he heard the questions, and he thought they were too basic. So then he thought better of it, and that he had better questions. So he actually did.
This is why, and I'll tell you why, Ryan. Because I left the gym the other day, and I've been having some really good workouts. But the last one, I know that I phoned it in. Mm-hmm. I know that I did not put in what I could have or probably should have. It was a good workout, but I left feeling like there was a lot more that I could have left there, which I didn't. Right, and I know that you have to have those every once in a while. And then when Ryan brought this up, I immediately thought to that moment where I left the gym, and I was thinking to myself, man, I really didn't push myself today. So the idea was, ask yourself these questions. Especially if you're not getting the results you want, if you find that you're not happy with how you're working out or your current fitness level, your current weight, if you wish to be losing weight or maybe even gaining weight, if things aren't going how you want them to, or if things could be better in some way, ask yourself these questions. And that's what this little questionnaire is. And I think that it's not always easy to assess yourself. And that's why we talk about accountability so much. But if you are honest, it can at least steer you in the right direction.
Yes. So you guys will not get my questions, the ones made by a professional trainer, but you'll get the ones made by a professional co-podcasting host that he came up with in about 10 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Well, look, I've actually...
No, I'm messing with you. They're actually pretty good questions. So that these are actually legitimate.
And I've been thinking about this for a little while. Not in the same way. Like I just didn't think to put it together in a comprehensive self-questionnaire.
Yeah. And if you want my questions, you're going to have to write in and prove to Justin that you would like to hear from me, the professional who's worked with hundreds of people. and again, not the professional co-host.
All right. So our first question is, how often are you working out or missing workouts? And why, or what excuses are you giving? Are they legitimate? Did you have a family issue that really came up, or are you doing the classic making an excuse for yourself?
Okay, so that's a good question, and the problem. So part of it also is framing. That's one thing to consider. Is when you're dealing, this is where, there's when you ask a question like that, it's almost an accusation right away. So it's going to make somebody defensive if you ask it in the, if you're kind of asking them, if you ask in that way, it's framed in a way that almost is accusatory right off the bat. So you want to be, it's more, you think about, when the days that, let's say if you what's your intention versus what's actually happening. So, how many days a week do you intend on exercising, and how many days is it actually happening? And then if there's a disparity between those two, if the intention is 3 days and you're only going 2, or if the intention is 5 days and you're only going 3, then you have to look, okay, why am I not going? Now look at the reasons why. Are they reason then, and then you ask, okay, was an opportunity to work out in those, could I have found pockets to do it? And if the answer is no, then maybe you need to kind of refine what your own program is. So if you intend on 5 days and you're only making 3, and they're legitimate reasons, maybe it's work, but for some people work, staying an extra hour at work is just an excuse to not go to the gym. For other people, they have no choice. They have to stay at work.
Sure.
So you kind of have to ask yourself, is that a reason? But then the other question is, okay, if you're finding that there are reasons why, obstacles to why you're not going, what are the alternatives to get those workouts in, and do they exist? So maybe it means going in the morning. Even if you hate morning workouts, you just got to do it. Maybe it means working out at home. Any number of things. So you kind of, in looking at that question, you kind of have to look at it as, again, where am I now versus what I want to do, and what are the obstacles? Are they obstacles that I'm allowing to get in the way? Or can I overcome them? And if not, what are the alternatives? And then sometimes it just means modifying down. Like maybe you have to just change your goals to be something that's realistic.
Of course, we get to that later.
Yes.
It always comes back to goals, right? All right. So this is a little bit of a tricky question, but I think that everyone can answer it honestly. And it's, how hard are you working out? Right? And how often do you feel like I felt the other workout where I know I phoned it, and I know that I left saying I could have done more reps, I could have run, I could have done some intervals at the end, but I didn't. I just was somewhat satisfied with what I did for whatever reason. How often does that happen, right? And you can't kill yourself. And we even say you're not supposed to go balls to the wall every workout, although some people do, right? You have to have those workouts where you don't push as hard. But how often is that happening? Do you feel that every time you go to the gym, you're really not pushing yourself?
So that's another one. I'm like bashing your questions a little bit. So again, it's in the framing of the question. So right away, again, how often do you phone it in? You're creating a negative kind of connotation with the.
Or the flip side, how often do you really push yourself?
So there are a couple problems here. One is it's a little difficult to self-report. So if most people tend to overestimate their output. And so that becomes a problem because if I just ask you if you're phoning it in or if you're working out hard enough, many people are just going to say, well, I am. And so I think one important thing is that they have to understand for what their goal, what their workout should feel like. And like to get results, what should their workout feel like? And then you can kind of ask, are you doing, are you working out as hard as you need to? Now, if there's a clear understanding of how hard you need to work out, then you can ask yourself, like, how often do you kind of not do the extra set? Or how often do you leave early? Or how often do you skip, you skip something that you could have done? Maybe you could have done an extra set of squats or you could have done an extra mile. So, maybe how often do you cut things short is a valid question. But then more importantly is once you kind of identify the intent, the intensity you're supposed to work out, and if you can kind of honestly assess how hard you're working, the question is, why are you not? Is it that you're tired? Is it that you're not motivated? Is it that you're bored? Those are all, variables that are important. Like if it's boredom, well, figure out something that maybe is more interesting or that you like more. If it's that you're just tired or energy wise, maybe you need better nutrition before you work out, or you need better sleep or stress. So you kind of have to figure out if you are, quote, phoning it in, why are you phoning it in? Maybe you just hate exercise. Then, that's another thing. Or maybe you just have a low tolerance for pain. I've trained people who their output is on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 3, but anything more than a 3 is significantly hard. Like there's like there's some kind of mental block where they actually really, they dislike discomfort so much that any bit is almost impossible to get through.
See, it's funny. You bashed my questions, but my sort of non-professional questions have raised all these good points.
So here's the thing: you have the right idea.
Well, that's the point. I'm not a fitness professional.
You have an idea. You're just framing the questions in the worst way possible. That's all. Like if you were going to say this to a potential client or somebody, it's like I said, it's all in the framing. Because if you make it
some
negative,
drill sergeants might say, "Come on, you're phoning it in." Come on, push hard,
but
right?
that's because people are training to kill people, like to go to war. There's a toughness involved in training for sports, athletics, and military.
Or the Biggest Loser.
Sure. and look, some people like that. So
true.
Not saying, just in general.
I know people have requested that you be a drill sergeant, right?
Yeah, no, and I'm not. It's not me. But we've talked about that before. But no, there's in general. There's a certain approach you need to take, and you're dealing with something that's very, very sensitive for people. So approaching things in a positive way. It's kind of like, when you're, please don't take this wrong, but like when you're training a dog, like you say, you have some people who like positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. I think positive reinforcement is always going to be the better, unless for some people they just deal better with negative reinforcement.
So the next question is a classic doozy, and Ryan brought up a good point, and I'll get to that. So the question is very simply, how often do you stray from your diet or whatever your eating plan is? So Ryan brought up the point that, well, not everyone knows with calories, and they often eat more than they need to, or they don't realize that certain foods are unhealthy or may not get them to their goal. With that being understood, everyone knows that or most people know that if you're eating tons of fried food or if you're eating tons of sugar, and cakes, those are the things I'm referring to. How often are you eating junk food? How often are you eating huge desserts and not going for very basic things that are good for you? Right? Let's say that you've met with a dietitian and he or she's prescribed an eating plan for you, and you fall off that by eating the things that they say these are the worst things you can eat. How often do you do that? Look, we all do it. We all stray. How often are you
I like how you tried to preemptively stop my bashing your question, but it's not going to stop me.
Wait, how does this turn into a bashing of my question? That's a good question.
Okay, no, so I'm not that. I'm just messing with you. But no, so we talked about a couple of these questions before. So I'll explain what I was saying. So Justin asked, how often do you stray from your diet? And my response when we were talking earlier was, again, it comes back to self-reporting. So if you're self-reporting your diet, people tend to, it's just from research, people tend to underestimate their caloric intake. So that becomes problematic when you're kind of trying to estimate your diet. And then in my own experience with people, I think, lack of knowledge of what quote unquote straying is a big deal. So if you're not on we typically don't preach like diets, like Atkins or whatever it is. Like we kind of, especially with Tony, we talk about, being balanced and kind of following certain principles, but we're not so like if you're following the ketogenic diet, there's a clear distinction between what's good and what's bad for that diet. So yes, you can tell when you're straying and when you're not. But for the average person, for some people, straying from the diet is going to be like a Nature's Valley bar. But for other people, it's like, oh, well, it's a healthy bar. It's got nice green packaging and has oats on the cover. It must be good. So, just that question is so subjective that it renders it almost meaningless unless we get like context.
Well, of course.
So what I would say.
But I don't think it's that. Granted, I'm not professional, but I don't think it's that meaningless. No, I think that everyone knows, or most people know, what foods are really not going to get them to their goals.
Yeah.
Right. Fried foods, deep fried foods, dessert, like with lots of sugar, stuff like that. I think that it doesn't take a dietitian to know that these foods are not going to help you.
So I would make this. There's two parts to this. I would say. I'm trying to think of the right way to word it, but you have the two parts of are knowledge and willpower, I think, right? So you have the knowledge is what do you have an appropriate level of knowledge on nutrition and on diet and on what you're supposed to eat.
That's a great way to frame it. See?
Yeah. See?
I always ask the great questions, and Ryan just rewords it into a way that is a
something
little more
that makes
professional.
sense. So you have part one, which is, do you have an appropriate level of knowledge? If you don't, then I definitely suggest checking out any episode with Tony and even contacting Tony if you don't. Because I like it. In dealing with enough people, it is amazing how limited and how frustrating. Dealing with people with online fitness programming. We always touch on diet, and I always say that I always say within my own scope of practice, right? So I don't go beyond basic nutrition. But it's amazing just how many people just fail on basic nutrition, and how many people just miss the boat on just simple things. So we can never take for granted, like you and I, we've been doing this for a long time. So we have this kind of innate knowledge and idea of what's good and what's bad just because we've been in health and fitness since we were in high school. But for a lot of people, they don't know. And I'm amazed at the amount of people that when they start with me for fitness, they don't really want the fitness. They just want to know how to eat better. And so, just the basic, and we're working on just getting some of that stuff up on the site anyway, just the basic nutrition ideas. Kind of a reference for people to look at. So hopefully that'll be up on our website sooner than later. But so the first part is, do you really have a decent knowledge of what you should be eating? And so that's part one. Part two is, then becomes a little more subjective, but how often do you stray from your diet? So how often do you stray from what to be right and wrong? And so those are two important questions, though, because the straying from it becomes a willpower thing, because we all deal with that. Whatever diet you're on or however you eat, which you did touch on, is like everybody, again, kind of your way of brushing off the question of being subjective. Like, oh, well, whatever. Everybody still knows when they're doing something really bad. So let's we grant that, right? Most people have temptations and know that there's this food that I shouldn't be eating, no matter how limited your knowledge is.
Yeah.
So the question is then, with whatever your level is at that, like how often do you stray from that? Because that's going to be an important thing, is how difficult is your willpower? Because if the willpower is low, then you need to come up with strategies to fight that. And that might be that, you have to be more prepared. For a lot of people, you have to make decisions before you're hungry. You have to not have bad foods around. So I think, part one is address your nutrition knowledge and try to fix that. And then part two is, if you know where your weaknesses are, then you need to create situations and systems that address that and stop you from straying from whatever your own ideal nutrition plan or diet is.
Interesting. All right. So it's an important, a lot of questions.
3 out of
to
3.
ask when it comes to that.
Yeah, I had a simple questionnaire, but we've got like 5,000 questions to ask.
All right. So another question that you're going to want to ask yourself: are there distractions when you're working out? If you're at the gym or if you're at home, right? Are you, if you're at home, are you watching television, right? Are you on your phone? Are you texting people? Are you calling people? Are you listening to music, podcast? Now, look, a lot of us listen to music or listen to a podcast or something while we're working out. For some people, it's just part of the workout. But for some people like me, that it could turn into a distraction. Are you talking with people? Do you chat for 20 minutes with your buddy at the gym, right? Are you, reading articles or something like that on your phone, or do you bring a magazine with you? Right? Are there distractions that really you don't need as part of your workout?
I'm not gonna bash the pretty straightforward. Yeah, there's not much I'm gonna add to that. But it is something to consider, because for some people, they're not getting the most out of their time in the gym because they are distracted by something or someone. Look, if you're reading the newspaper, riding a bike, you're probably not getting the level of exercise that you should be getting. And I've seen that, people with the New York Times out, wide open reading it while riding the bike. And I love listening to music, so I don't think that's a bit much of an issue. But like watching TV, if you're watching TV on a treadmill, that's great. But just don't let the TV take so much attention away that you're not exercising hard enough. But also, working out with friends is good, but if you spend the whole time chatting, probably not so good. I see people all the time that are like on their phones constantly, and again, something to be aware of. Like, probably don't want to be on your phone texting too much. Even if you can, leave your phone away or put it on airplane mode or something. You do want to avoid distractions at the gym, and think about that. Are there distractions that maybe force you to spend too much time in the gym? I had one guy who would always talk about he didn't have a lot of time, but when I would watch him work out, he'd spend most of his time doing something distracted, whether it was chatting with other members or texting, and maybe 10% of his time was actually working out. So it's like, well, yeah, you're spending too much time in the gym because you have all these extra things you're doing, but the actual workout time is not that much. So if you actually just focus on your workout, you could get in and out of there in 30, 40 minutes versus like the hour and a half you're there, but you spend most of your time chatting.
Yeah. And
like Justin's distracted on his phone right now, which is why his answers are kind of like vague and or his response is vague.
Yeah, I was a little distracted.
To be fair, I do that too.
Actually, as Ryan reaches for his phone, it's like phone anxiety is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be looking down. You have to be checking something, right? So I've actually asked myself that question recently, and I found out that I was very distracted. That I would like to talk to people, I would talk to my buddy about the upcoming fights all the time. Now, granted, I try to do it in the beginning or the end before I start, so it doesn't. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll chat with someone. I'll be on my phone, or I'll get. I don't know if you do this, but I'll get the bright idea that I want to research something. I'll say, I wonder what the impact of this on society is. So I'll just start going down some rabbit hole of research.
I do that.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
But that's not the time to do it.
Yeah. Well, no, if I get an idea in my head, I sometimes can't, or like if I have a 3D printing idea or something, I'll start thinking about that and then start like freaking out and on my phone. And then all of a sudden I spend 20 minutes like
You've
researching
done that
something.
and you're like, oh wait, that's right. I'm here to work out.
Yeah.
So no, I've definitely been very guilty of that. Now in the past, like maybe I could get away with it a little more because I could spend, I would spend an hour and a half, 2 hours at the gym, work out. But for the most part, I don't think that it's the best use of time, and it can certainly take away from one's workout.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is a very Ryan type question, and it is, how specific are your goals, and how are you tracking them? And is there any accountability?
I would separate the accountability because that's a little bit separate of an issue.
Okay.
But yeah, no. So that's that is actually pretty straightforward. It makes sense. So your goals are important for any exercise program. I think it keeps you focused, keeps you motivated, and then tracking is also another part that's important. So again, keeps you focused, keeps you motivated, keeps you honest, holds you accountable, even though we'll talk a little bit more about accountability as a bit of a separate thing. But I think those are important. And I think for anybody that sets goals and tracks goals, they're great ways to keep you honest. So, for some people, it's like they have a vague idea of a goal. Like, I want to lose some weight or I want to put on some muscle, but there's no specificity to that. And so giving yourself like a hard number is really useful, and tracking it. And again, it keeps you honest, because even if you're not sticking to it, you can say to yourself, you clearly see, okay, here's my goal. Here's where I am. I want to get from here to there. And what am I doing? And then you can make, you can then make changes if you're not getting towards that goal. But if you kind of just leave it to chance, or stay away from it, then you kind of end up in this cycle of kind of just working out, missing some workouts, eating, not eating. So it's always good to have your goals and have some method of tracking. And the methods of tracking can be different. You could do measuring tape. You could do your body fat. You could check your weight. You could take photos. Photos I find are great motivation, because sometimes the scale will not show you as much as a visual, like a picture, will show you. So, definitely goals and tracking your goals are really important.
All right. And now, what about that accountability?
So accountability is another important thing, and there are lots of different ways to kind of hold yourself accountable, but find ways to hold yourself accountable. Now, as we mentioned, tracking is one way to hold yourself accountable, and you do it. The key, though, to accountability is not to just do it when it works, or when you're doing the right thing. So for some people, they only want to check, like I know some people, let's say they check their weight, and they only check their weight when they've been really good for a few weeks, but they don't check their weight when they're not, as if somehow like not checking, and I get that not check, it's discouraging to see the number, but if you're consistent in your checking, you're going to always be aware of what's going on. So it's like, if you had a bad weekend and you gained some weight, not seeing the scale isn't going to make a difference,
Sure.
And in fact, I find that seeing it is more motivating versus not seeing it, but you still know you're not where you need to be. So I think the key to accountability
it's funny
is
that
being.
you say that.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's been on a pretty specific eating plan, and she's been like eating so little and not eating at night and stuff like that. And then one day she woke up and she'd gained half a pound or something like that after being so good. And I said, oh, you can't always judge that. There's water weight.
Yeah.
One day, anything could be, it could be anything. But she got discouraged, so she had a pretty bad eating day.
Well, does she check
for
every day?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the other issues. Don't check every day.
Don't
Check
every day.
once a week.
Yeah.
But be consistent with your
That's
checking.
what I said. Worry about the nets. You can't. The day-to-days.
Day-to-day is a little tricky.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Day-to-day can be tricky. But, pick one day every week. Check once a week. I know some people who check every day, but then you do have to keep that in mind that you're going to fluctuate a little bit over day to day. But it's just that. But now another way to keep yourself accountable is keeping a journal or a food log. So if you're writing what you're eating all the time, you're it's weird because we're aware of what we're eating, but it's really easy to distance yourself from like you could have a crappy breakfast and then just distance yourself from that breakfast and then have a bad meal at lunch and then distance. But if you write everything down, it's there, it's in front of you. You've admitted it. And so that's another way to hold yourself accountable. Having some kind of a social group is another way to hold yourself accountable. So just accountability is important because it keeps you honest with yourself and present. And it's really easy to disconnect from what you're doing if you don't want to face it. And I think facing it, it forces you to come to terms with it.
Are you sort of disregarding? Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So the next question we have, which is sort of related, is your goals, but also your effort. So are your goals realistic?
Oh.
Right? Is your goal to effort ratio realistic?
Yeah. So we've talked about this before. An important thing is everybody as we just talked about, everybody has goals, fitness, exercise, lifestyle goals. So what is first is important is understanding what is it going to take to get whatever your goal is. And that takes some research, or, you have to really look into, what it's going to really take, and take some research, talking to trainers, listening to us, ask us the question if you're not sure. But, that's one thing right off the bat is you need to know what your goal is and what is the realistic approach to that. If you want to put on 30 pounds of muscle, is a lot different than if you want to put on 5 pounds of muscle. If you want to lose, 30 pounds in a month, it's a lot different than if you want to lose it in 2 years. So, the first question you got to ask is like, what's my goal? And then what is a realistic effort long term? And that's something that, again, people don't always think about. When you start an exercise program, it's really easy to be excited and you think you're motivated, but you really have to sit down with yourself and, so, consider your history, consider your lifestyle, consider what's going on. How realistic is my potential effort, or how realistic is my likely effort, especially after the first, the honeymoon period's over, how realistic is that compared to what I need to get there? And in some cases you have to modify your goal. Like if you really sit down and are honest with yourself about it, if you don't think that effort's realistic, then maybe you have to change it. Maybe instead of building 30 pounds of muscle, you say, all right, let me put on 5 pounds of muscle and go from there. So just kind of, and again, this does take some research, and this does take a lot of thought and kind of coming to terms with yourself is, if you hate exercise, if you hate lifting weights and you want to put on a lot of weight, if you're not a big eater, you hate feeling full, and you're not a big weightlifter, but you want to put on 30 pounds to look great, look a certain way at the beach, like that's going to be really hard, because now you're going to be forcing your life,
surgery, those
your
muscle
life
implants.
Yeah, right. Your life will revolve around doing things that you intensely dislike. So then the question is, how much do you want those beach muscles, and is it worth the stress and anxiety and pain and discomfort that it's going to cause you to get there? So that's a really important thing to ask yourself when it comes to this. Is at the end of the day, our physical goals, it's one thing if it's health. Like if you're, if you're morbidly obese and you need to lose, a lot of weight for health purposes, then that's going to supersede the discomfort, because, I'm assuming you value your life, and so you need to get yourself to a healthy weight. So that's a little bit different. Same thing if somebody's at an extremely low weight, that putting on weight is going to be important for your health. So there are certain situations where health will, to me, supersede, the kind of discomfort. But if the goal is more aesthetic, then you do have to ask yourself, like, is it worth the discomfort that's going to come with it to get that satisfaction of looking at myself in the mirror? Or, maybe it is. Maybe if there's an athletic goal, or if it's a job, if you're a model, if you're, an actor that you're finding you're not getting certain roles, that might be important for you. But there is going to be other things associated with it. So it's just kind of, you're really coming to terms with the effort versus requirement, and deciding where you sit on that, fence.
All right, so this is the last question, and it's something that I find myself doing all the time. I imagine that when I go to the gym, I'm going to do a warm-up, and then I'm going to do some pretty heavy weights, and then I'm going to do some really hard intervals afterwards, or I'm going to do this crazy cardio workout or conditioning workout or just whatever it is. But when I get there, I don't do as many sets as I imagined that I was. I just say, I'm just not going to do the intervals today. I do that all the time. In my mind, I'm going to do this super hard workout, and when I get there, a lot of times I'm like, I'll just do it next time. So the question is, how often do you or what do you imagine yourself doing? Like, I'm going to do this, at the gym today, or over a longer period of time, that you never do, or that you just don't wind up doing as much of the time as you'd like.
How is that different from the earlier one where you're dogging it?
Because you're not necessarily you might not be dogging it. You might have a good workout, but you're imagining that you're doing something different. Like you see yourself, working out 4 times a week. I'm going 4 times a week, and you tell yourself that every week, and you never do it.
I feel like it's kind of redundant. Like
you think so?
We've addressed it,
No,
I think,
don't
and
think
everything.
So at all. I think it's
all right. Well, then I'm going to give you the floor to explain.
Well,
explain.
All right, so the idea behind it is that we all think that we're going to do things, right? We all say, "I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start working out today, or I'm going to start working out 4 days a week, or I'm going to start incorporating this exercise," which actually is a question that we missed, which is actually very important as well. We'll get to that. So, are you making up things for yourself and that you never do it? So, say you're going to start working out and you never do it. Or you say that you're going to add additional days. You say you're going to do a different type of workout, and you never actually get to it.
I'm still not seeing how it's different from what we talked about.
I think it's pretty different.
All right.
So that's a question that I would, right?
No,
I think
why is that important?
Because I think if you're doing that a lot, I guess it goes back to what you're saying. What's the reason? Why do you imagine yourself doing that? Why do you want to do those things? So why do you say, I want to do these very tough intervals? And then why do you not do them? And why does this happen inconsistently? Even though it's something you think about often.
Okay. That is valid. If not redundant, it is a valid question. I have nothing to add.
All right, so just something that
it's a fair question. So now that was the last one, right?
No, there was one question which is sort of relating. Are you avoiding certain types of exercise or certain types of workouts?
Okay, yeah. So that's a little bit more. So some people only do weights; they don't do any cardio. Some people only do cardio and they don't do weights. Some people don't stretch. So I think you kind of like you want a balanced diet. You'll want to have a balanced exercise program, especially for health. So if you hate cardio, you don't have to do it all the time, but you still want to get it in. If you hate lifting weights, like there are significant health benefits for resistance training, especially as you get older. So it's not something you want to completely avoid. Same thing with flexibility. Like, stretching is important. Balance training can be important. There's lots of stuff that you definitely want to try to stick with. So
people tend to do what they enjoy and what they're good at.
Yeah, absolutely. They stay away from what's frustrating or discomforting. So you do want to make sure you're getting a good balance of the types of exercises. And just if you hate cardio, again, try to minimize it. Maybe do it once a week instead of 5 days a week, or you don't have to do run 10 miles, but run a mile, or bike for 30 minutes, or find something that's tolerable and do it, even if you don't like it. It's important for your health. All right, so we got a new segment that Justin will, again, this is Justin heavy episode. I haven't had to do any work for today. So
although you were the ones who answered the question, you gave the real advice. I sort of just threw out the fishing line.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you did the work for this, or at least the music. So without further ado, here is. Well, you'll hear it for yourself.
You'll get the point.
When it sounds too good to be true, when you're really not sure just what you should do, look around. Chances are you're on BS Corner. That's Bull Corner.
All right, so what do we have on the inaugural edition of the BS Corner?
All right, today we have the Flex Belt and similar products. So do you know what the Flex Belt is?
What is the Flex Belt?
All right, we're looking at it right now on the website. It is this belt that you put around your stomach, around your core area, and it vibrates or uses some sort of technology to stimulate. Well, all right, let's just see what it says. The Flex Belt, copyright, is the first ab belt toning system cleared by the FDA for toning, firming, and strengthening the stomach muscles. With the Flex Belt, you can train your abs even if you're too busy or too tired for a traditional workout. Just slip on the comfortable toning ab belt and the clinically demonstrated patented medical grade technology stimulates the nerves that make your muscles contract and relax. As a result, you get an effective abdominal workout that targets all the muscles in your abdomen, all in just 30 minutes a day.
Sounds like BS.
So, of course, they have this infomercial that they've put up that shows a ton of before and afterwards, where some, you see people that are flabby and then they're really toned, really muscular. And then you see a lot of people that look like they're already in really good shape, sort of talking about it. And, they know that the claims sound a little funky, so they're sort of adding some humor. And even the actors say, "Oh, is this really real?" But sure it is, stuff like that. So what reeks of dog poo or bull poo right off the bat?
I mean, the whole thing. It's not a new product. The FDA cleared thing is kind of
All right,
BS.
so let's just explain that what FDA cleared or even approved means very little unless it's for, I believe, class 3.
Well,
which are drugs that you have to get a prescription for, or medical devices that are life-sustaining or life-saving, like, say, a defibrillator, something like that. For fitness-type equipment and lesser, getting approved is much.
Well,
much
but the problem is also,
and this is not even approved. This is
it's just
cleared, which means it's not even. They didn't even have to. You don't even have to. They don't even have to research it. You just have to prove it's similar to another
from the
product.
marketing perspective, right? By getting the FDA clearance, what they do is they're able to market it as medical grade.
Yes,
but
and they even say that.
The issue
grade.
is
it says medical grade.
there's no research that shows that this actually works. To do anything, but it's kind of using that buzzword, or to kind of make you think that. So you think, oh, it's FDA cleared. They must be honest. They must be telling the truth about what it does. But it's really not. And at the end of the day, like nobody can just put that on their stomach and get results unless it's raising your heart rate and allowing you to do cardio. There's no way that's going to make you toned or lose
fat
or
anything. It's not going to make you lose fat, right? But why is it not even going to really strengthen your muscles? Like, what do you have to do in order to strengthen your core?
You have to do strength exercises.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, you have to exercise to do it. Now, there might be something to doing actual electrical stimulation, but that's a whole other world, and this is not it. So it's just using some buzzwords and some BS and pseudoscience, and some misleading marketing to tell you, like, for example, after, it says one of the things it says is after a 6-week study, I'd love to learn, I'd love to know the parameters of it, but
reported that their abs felt more toned and firm. What does toned even mean?
100% reported felt more toned and firm.
We even get on the subject of
and
tone.
92%,
it's a meaningless word.
Felt that the firmness of their ab muscles increased. And again, it's like, you really look into it, it's BS. There's nothing, so yeah, I mean, it smells like BS because it is BS, and it is what it is.
Yeah. So
now we won't be getting our free flex belts to talk about on the podcast.
And of course, more funny than that, we asked a group of skeptical influencers to review our product, and if you look, they are all very, very young and attractive people that are looking good. Okay, one says Soccer Dad, but he looks like a well-person. She looks like a fitness model, right? This guy has an enormous smile, right? She looks like a yoga instructor. So
this is an audio podcast, so remember, people can't see.
People can't see, but you could go look. You could go to the flexbelt dot.
How messed up would it be if, like, the flex belt people are like avid listeners of the GymWits, and just bashing their,
the GymWits doesn't discern when it comes to calling a spade a spade.
Fair enough.
So if it smells like BS, you're probably on BS Corner. I don't know what my slogan's going to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. I thought I was excited. I thought you were gonna have something good too. I was like, wait,
I don't
did you not tell me about this? And no.
So, all right. So the Flex Belt can be found on BS Corner, and if you believe something might belong on the BS Corner, let us know about it, and we'd love to do a review.
Speaking of getting the most out of your workout, I got to mentally prepare myself because so at Koban at my gym we have what's called Cardio Wednesday.
I hate Cardio Wednesday.
So I'm used to a certain style, but so I teach there at noon, and then I try to work out around 6:30, and then I teach again like 7:30 and 8:30. So I was privy to the workout for today earlier, and it was brutal. So I'm kind of like I got to mentally prepare myself for the just brutal workouts that's to come.
Well,
today.
you already did it, so you have to do it again.
I taught earlier, so
Okay.
I had to demonstrate. So
I
because Koban taught, so like I'm the assistant instructor at the point. So now just demonstrating was brutal, but now I'm gonna actually take the class.
Oh man,
and it's gonna be rough. So I have to mentally prepare myself.
You know what this
for
falls
that.
under?
So I'm not going. I gotta
we
not
often talk about
what
worrying about that your cardio workout is too difficult.
Huh? What?
We know what this falls under.
What does it fall under?
When your kickboxing workout is just too difficult.
Is that we're gonna add that too? I don't. I'm confused.
Something that we often talk about, that we rant about all the times.
Okay. Oh, my not like my first fitness world problem.
Yes, it's a first
fitness world problem.
Right.
Yeah, that my crazy workouts too crazy.
No. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, I got to mention for myself. I don't care. No. And that's it. I guess the good thing is I can complete it now.
Yeah.
But will be fun. Anyway, as usual, all of our stuff is at thegymwits.com. Definitely do the survey if you haven't already. Survey.lisbon.com. Help us out. You know all the stuff. I repeat it constantly ad nauseum. But website. Fill out Ask the Trainer. Ask us questions. Again, help me out if you're in Ireland and you have suggestions of cool places to take pictures and good food. Definitely tell me.
Well, that's right. That was this episode.
Yeah, that was this episode. Yeah, we were doing a lot of episodes today, so in advance of my trip, so that we have stuff stocked up, so we keep giving you
content.
Product. Yeah. All right, we're watching too much of The Wire. All right. Anyway, I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic, reminding you that truth does not sell.
And we are the GymWits.